all these projects, here's the thing. There are even some people, some Marxists, who will tell you that neoliberalism began in the 30s, not in the fucking 70s or 80s. They say that it began in the 30s. And like all these projects, like oh yeah, this is the other thing I was going to talk about. There's so much to talk about. There's such a wealth. I've built up such a wealth of topics and stuff and like things that I have to say after not going on here for 2 weeks, but like all of those political projects, it's just a long evolution of the same thing. Like neoliberalism is a rotting corpse that just keeps churning itself on. Like it just keeps like look, we have Biden now. Like it's this old dead political machine that has already failed to live up to all of its promises of capitalist prosperity in this post-ideological era. And that's the thing we need to understand, is that we're dealing with that same type of shit that arguably started with Reaganism and Thatcher and all of that stuff. That same kind of mentality, that is what they're running off of. And it's not even just the mentality, it's the actual political hegemony of the fucking country too. Like, and here's the thing. When the Soviet Union collapsed, I think it was George Bush Sr. He got up in front of a bunch of people and he said some shit about communism has been defeated and now we don't need to worry about ideology. We're now living in the post-ideological era where there's no longer any debate about what system is better. But here's the thing. And then after he said that, and then Fukuyama, that dumbass guy, went on Charlie Rose and he said all that shit about, yes, the end of history is here, liberal democratic capitalism is proven to be the ideal system for human flourishing to happen under, even though nobody on the ground actually living in it actually fucking feels that way. Like, and that guy has actually, like, detracted his end of history bullshit by now. And apparently Fukuyama was a Bernie guy in 2016 or 20, whichever one. So even he smelt his own bullshit, you know what I mean? But like, here's the thing. After all of that was declared as like, yes, we are historically objectively proven to be the right system, everyone now thinks with this vulgar empiricist worldview as if you can just technocratically trust the experts and the institutions of power, the hegemony, as Gramsci actually outlines, to just tell you the truth. Like people basically think that what institutions and what experts and technocrats and that kind of, and here's the thing, technocracy doesn't mean government by machines. Technocracy means like an oligarchy of the elite. It means government by the experts. It means managerialism. That's what it means. It means people, it's a fundamentally anti-democratic structure of governance. It's basically where you have some kind of quote-unquote meritocracy where all of the people who are like experts in all of these fields will basically just govern and control the world. Like the people who are pulling the levers of power are all like institutional, like elite academic types. You know what I mean? Like professional managerial types. And that's kind of like the way that the government and the culture here. That's the thing about Gramsci's analysis, is that's how cultural hegemony maintains itself, through these material institutional structures of power. Okay, so if you like, my lens of Marxism trends more towards that, and especially going into Foucault, because it's like all of these carceral systems. It's like I took abolish the prisons and abolish the police seriously. Like I was thinking that before it became a hashtag. Like you know what I mean? Like, we need to be critical of the fucking institutions of power if we're radicals at all. Like, what else does that mean, you know? But after the end, the quote-unquote end of ideology and the end of history was declared, that's now the popular mainstreamed lens of looking at the world, is that kind of vulgar, empiricist, technocratic, expert humping, cock-sucking, institutionalized nonsense, right? So, but what people don't understand about that is, if you see the world like that, like what the experts and what the institutions of power tell you is just objective truth, that is literally the pinnacle, the peak of being an ideology. You are so deep in ideology, you've hit the fucking ocean floor. That's what ideology is. Like, when you actually go into theorists and like listen to them talk about it, like Slavoj Žižek, that's what he's good for. He's good for that kind of critique. Like that kind of like exposing to people that what you think is just the objective truth of the world is literally just an ideological, symbolic belief that you inherited from a structure of power. That's what's good about Zizek. That's what he's good at. Like, that's the fundamental thing that people don't understand, is all of the rhetoric about post-ideology and all of that. It's bullshit. If you see the world in that way, you are the ideological one. That's just the case, you know? Like that, like that's what it is. That's what cultural hegemony is. Like, that's the whole, because the whole continental philosophy, like the deepest insight, or one of them that you can achieve into like social, cultural, material analysis, is the fact that there is no singular, preordained, holy, God-given objectivity at all. That's the key. That's like the deepest, like, and it's not just this vulgar nihilism. It's literally like a awareness of historical materialism. That's the best way I can put it. It's just an awareness of the fact that we live in a world with a history, and not all of the cultures and societies of the world have developed to be the same and have the same interpretation of reality around us, because human subjectivity is dynamic and fluid and variable and very, very fucking malleable and universally fluid. That's my concept for it. Any kind of universality that people want to draw out that isn't out of a particular situation that you can then say, like, there's the universal aspect of this. All these universals, these false universals that people point to, literally all of them are oversimplifications. Even humanity itself is an oversimplification. And you're glossing over so much when you say, like, oh yes, humanism, guys, we're all humans, guys. Kumbaya, everybody. It's like, you don't understand how the structures of like divided subjectivities and like all these material divisions that then create ideational divisions, like race, for example, and like gender, for example, and queer people, for example, all those things, you don't understand how all of those structures produce a situation where people dehumanize each other to the point where we cannot have a world where people are just nice to each other and everyone is just, oh yes, we're all human beings, guys. Precisely because of those divisions. Like, you would literally have to like materially ameliorate the actual real inequalities of lifestyles between people in order to achieve that, because people dehumanize each other all the time because of these structures, these identity structures, as people like to say. Like it's just like all of the, and that's the thing about the like, for each according to his ability, to each according to his need. Where that quote originally comes from of Marx, he was making a criticism of someone else who was saying that was like a model for a like political society. Marx was basically saying, like, we can't just do that right now because that's not how capitalism works. You know what I mean? Like, that's where that quote originally comes from. He was criticizing utopians and basically saying, like, we will never reach a world that functions according to the principle of from each according to his ability, to each according to his need, under this system. And that's the thing that people need to understand about capitalism, is it is literally a world global political economic system. It's not when people do private enterprise, it's not private ownership of the means of production and just that. It's a fucking system, dude. It's a stage of history. It's a system and it's a stage of history. If you actually take historical materialism seriously. And if you view the world, and I'm not saying always do this in all cases, but if you view the world dialectically as well, like if you actually take this philosophy seriously that I talk about, instead of just watching like online politics just to like, I don't know, just to like unload all of your frustrations about your like conservative friends or something, like whatever, you know what I mean? But if you actually take the philosophy seriously, you understand the fact that like there's so many intricate parts to the world, and there's so much dialectical movement and motion that happens, and it's such an intricate, complicated tapestry of I keep saying that word, multiple parts that are dynamically interacting with each other. That like, yeah, human beings have to reproduce their ways of life. You are forced into that situation where you are just reproducing your sustenance under capitalism, and you just have to keep doing that until you can finally retire and then grow old and die and have those like 20 years, if you're lucky, of happy vacation life, like actually living like how a human being would actually want to wake up and live if we didn't live in this shitty fucking political economic system. You understand what I mean? Like, you have to eliminate those conditions and bring the dialectic forward to a better situation in order to achieve all of your utopian, idealistic fucking ideas about what the world could be like. That's the point. That's the point that I'm trying to drive home. You have to change the real situation that happens day to day for average human beings, the vast majority of people in the world, in life. You have to actually change those conditions. That's what a fucking material condition is. But I didn't even think that I was going to be explaining basic Marxism today.